But Valley News Live at 10, as schools continue to change their learning models, we'll take a deep dive into the number of school-aged children testing positive for coronavirus. How deputies discovered a body today in the Red River. Plus, we'll break down both presidential candidates' messages to Minnesotans today. Valley News Live at 10 starts right now.
Live from Fargo and serving you on TV, online and on the go. This is Valley News Live at 10.
New at 10 tonight, COVID-19 data that may have you rethinking whether schools should be opting for the in-person approach to education. The numbers show a startling trend for students across the state as COVID-19 continues to rise in our region. Valley News Team's Devin Fries broke down the numbers and joins us in studio with more. Devin?
Mike, we've been looking at data from the North Dakota Department of Health, and one troubling trend is clear. Cases of COVID-19 have taken a sharp increase in student-age patients since the school year started. The number of cases since the end of August has more than doubled in two of our most populous counties. Here in Cass County, there were 510 confirmed cases in that 19 and under age group from March all the way through August. From September 1st to now, there have already been 1,076 confirmed cases in that group in just under 2 months. The number also more than doubled in Burleigh County. Out there were 332 cases reported from March to the end of August and 781 from September to now. And in Grand Forks County, there was another sharp increase, this time going from 290 cases before the school year and 530 from September on. And again, these are just confirmed cases. Now, it's important to note that these numbers aren't directly linked to the start of school as far as we know, but it can't be denied that since the school year began, the case rate in that 0 to 19 age group has increased drastically. This is all happening while the debate for in-person or distance learning rages on. Fargo Public Schools will be discussing bringing students back into the building full-time in their next meeting on November 2nd. Mike?
All right, thanks so much, Devin. We have attached the raw data so you can see for yourself on valleynewslive.com. Just go there and click on this story. It'll likely be a few more days before we know the identity of the body pulled from the Red River today. It was found in the area of 52nd Avenue South, or what's known as the Convent Road. Authorities say the discovery was made just after 4:30 p.m. on the Moorhead side of the river and was part of a missing person call earlier in the day. No foul play is suspected. Another change to voting deadlines in Minnesota, now just 4 days ahead of the election. Absentee ballots must now be in by 3 p.m. on Election Day. As of last night, the deadline was 8 p.m., but the original deadline, was November 10th. Minnesotans were told that their ballot would be accepted as long as it was in the mail by Election Day. Yesterday, a federal court ruled Minnesota cannot extend the deadline. Minnesota Secretary of State Steve Simon is calling that the ruling is unnecessarily disruptive.
There will be more time later for expressions of disappointment. For now, our focus has to be very clear, and that is on the voters of Minnesota. We have to make sure that every legally cast ballot is counted.
The lawsuit was brought by Minnesota State Representative Eric Lucero, who is a Republican presidential elector. He called it a significant victory for Minnesota voters, fair elections, and the rule of law. This case is now in the hands of a lower court for further proceedings. President Trump tore into Minnesota state leaders during his rally today, which adhered to the state-mandated attendance restrictions. The campaign abided by a 250-person guest limit at the rally, which should normally see thousands of packed, mostly unmasked supporters. The president was very unhappy with the situation. After visiting thousands of supporters gathered at an overflow area, he spoke at his official event for only 21 minutes. Joe Biden isn't taking anything for granted when it comes to stumping for votes. The former vice president rallied drive-in supporters today at the Minnesota State Fairgrounds in St. Paul, laying out his agenda for the next 4 years and urging people to get out and vote. The former vice president wrapped up his campaign blitz through the Midwest with an evening rally in Milwaukee. 2 North Dakota Board of Higher Education seats are coming open next year, and now they're looking for applicants. The positions are both 4-year terms. The board oversees the state's university system of 11 colleges and universities. Applications are due by December 31st. Organizations across the country have been offering free rides to the polls, helping voters who, in many cases, might not otherwise be able to cast a ballot. Reporter Elise Preston checks in with one group that's hoping to reach thousands of voters by Election Day.
Hi.
Let me help you out.
For the first time in her life, 40-year-old Rashima Brown is casting a ballot in a general election. But she doesn't have a working car to get to her Philadelphia polling site.
I'm not totally comfortable with the bus right now. Some people are wearing masks, some people aren't. So to me, this was a safer option.
That safer option is a ride from the interfaith organization Power. It's a coalition of more than 100 Pennsylvania houses of worship that aims to mobilize voters with a focus on minorities.
How y'all doing today?
Driver Kevin Bolden has been working nearly 12-hour shifts to get as many people as he can to the polls, despite the threat of coronavirus.
I'm not concerned about my safety because we disinfect the van each and every time we drop passengers off and pick passengers up.
Director Kendra Cochran says this year transportation is even more critical for the low-income communities they serve, which are disproportionately hard hit by the pandemic.
If it comes between bus fare and maybe eating that day, they're going to choose to eat. So we just eliminate that whole stress.
This year, the group has almost tripled its fleet to meet the demand. In just one night, they had requests for more than 450 rides. Across the country, organizations are providing rides in a record-breaking year for early voting. Orlando area pastor Terrence Gray says many elderly Black people getting rides in his community just don't want to vote by mail.
Something in their core wants to walk in. It has a lot to do with the time of the generation that's before us that was not able to, and it matters to them.
And it matters to Brown. She wants her 3-year-old daughter to see early on VOTE, the importance of making her voice heard. Elise Preston, CBS News, Philadelphia.
Organizers say a lack of access to transportation along with limited polling sites are both forms of voter suppression. A woman called our whistleblower hotline today saying her mother-in-law, who unexpectedly died in the middle of October, is being forced to pay November's rent because proper notification wasn't given. Angela Oyen says her mother-in-law was living in the Auburn Place Apartments in South Fargo, owned by Orange Property Management. Kathy was diagnosed with bone cancer on October 13th. 5 days later, she passed away.
Why try to hold a family that's already, struggling the way it is to pay for something that they can't even afford?
We haven't heard back from the apartment complex, but we did reach out to a local law firm that said they've gotten several calls relating to apartment issues lately. They say typically when someone passes away, any lease agreement ends. For updates on this story, download our Valley News Live app. Hundreds donned their masks and costumes to take part in a trunk and treat event tonight at the Dilworth Police Department. It's the second year Dilworth authorities have hosted the event, this time partnering with Glendon Police. Officers were on hand to hand out candy, masks, and other safety supplies to the trick-or-treaters there. While this year is obviously different, some families say they're just happy to get back to some sense of normality.
To a 2-year-old, it's not a big deal. To a 10-year-old, it's a huge deal.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you remember it at 10 years old, being able to go and see the zoo people, meet the police department. It's huge that they're putting on an event like this for the kiddos.
Staff from the Red River Zoo even had some animals on hand just to show off and have some fun with. Later on Valley News Live at 10, Amazon profits are on the rise as it plans to move into the area. But first, our chief meteorologist, Hutch Johnson, tells us when we'll need to hold on to the candy buckets as that wind is expected to be fierce. He's next, right after this break.